Hello, magical people of the internet. I am Jen, and welcome to I Never Thought I Would, where we talk about doing things we never thought we would do and the fantastic places that they can lead us. I'm really excited. I have such a special guest today. Her name is Lynda Sunshine West. She's an international best-selling author, a publisher, and a speaker. Hi, Lynda.
Hello there, Jen. I love it. I'm excited because I love how you introduced us as the internet, the magical internet people.
Well, it's funny. Like I come from a theater background where I'm like used to having a live audience, and now it's like, you don't know who's out there. So they're just
Right.
magical internet people.
I love that. That's fun. That's fun.
Yes, and every one of us has magic inside of us. So I want to encourage everyone to do things they never thought they would do, because that's usually when the magic comes about. Which
Yes.
brings me to your magical experiences and journey. We've had a chance to talk before. You had me on your podcast, Women Action Takers, and it was fabulous. We had a fabulous interview. So I know a little bit about you, not the full extent, because you have achieved so much. You have so much going on. And I would love it if you could share one story. I know you have several about doing something you never thought you would do. You actually have a whole book about them, but we'll get to that in a little bit.
Okay. Yeah, it's a hard question for me because there are so many things that I never imagined I would do. And to touch on that briefly, in 2015, I faced a fear every single day. So there's 365 of them right there, right? But the one that really, really came to mind when you asked me that question was, I remember this moment, and it was like my Barbara Walters, for anybody who knows who that is, or Oprah Winfrey moment, that I interviewed the president of Mexico, Vicente Fox, in his presidential suite.
What?
Yeah, exactly.
Okay.
I know.
How? Where? What? Do you speak
I know.
Spanish?
No, I don't. He speaks English. Thank goodness. Thank goodness. Or we would have needed an interpreter. But yeah, so that was, that's just part of my magical journey that really started in 2015 when I was facing those fears every day. And I had no idea that by doing that, that it would lead to what it led to. And I ended up attending an event called Secret Knock in 2015. And that was part of what really started to change my path quickly, because it was already changing, but it was changing quickly because of that event. And because of my relationship to the creator of that event. And I started volunteering for him, started working for him, on the side as a volunteer. Like I wasn't getting paid for any of this, but I ended up meeting these incredible people like Les Brown and, Jack Canfield, Wesley Snipes. And, I interviewed these people on the red carpet. And then Vicente Fox, the president, was going to be coming to speak at Secret Knock, and I was the gatekeeper for Secret Knock. So I took advantage of that stuff. And and Greg, my mentor, he's the creator of the event. He's like, good for you, because you went in and you took advantage of the situation that you had in hand. And so I just reached out to President Fox's assistant, and I said, when he's in town, I'd like to be on the docket to interview him. And she said, okay, this day, this time, at his presidential suite. I said, okay, I'll be there. And so that was how it happened. And I love to talk about the power of asking, because it's in that ask that sometimes we're told no, but more times than not, we're actually told yes. And that was one of those instances that if I had thought about it too much, I would never have asked. But it happened. I interviewed him. It was an amazing interview. And I walked away from there. I was like, oh my God, that was my Barbara Walters moment. I interviewed the president of a freaking country.
Yes.
How cool is that?
That's so cool. And there's a couple of things that I want to touch on. First of all, what you're talking about is the ask, because I have a saying, we're already living with the no when we don't ask, because we've said no to ourselves when we don't let ourselves ask, or when we don't have the courage to ask. And it's like we're already afraid of the no we already told ourselves. And the other thing I wanted to touch on is you said you were volunteering. And so many of us, we get to a point in our lives, in our adult lives where we feel like we're too experienced to volunteer. If that putting our ego aside and volunteering can open up doors that we can't open up ourselves, what's the big deal?
Yeah, and I love it. I volunteer from my heart. It's not to get anything out of it. I volunteered because I wanted to learn. I
Well,
volunteered because
exactly.
I wanted to see what it was like on the other, because I had already attended the event 3 times. And
Mhm.
I said, I wonder what it's like to volunteer, to be in the behind the scenes of this event, because it is a Forbes #1 rated event to attend for entrepreneurs. So it's up there, right? And so
Yes.
I had put on over 100 events myself, but there were
Mhm.
small events, nothing like this, nothing of this caliber. And so that's why I was asking myself, I wonder what it would be like to volunteer here. And then that led to me becoming the organizer of the event, because the organizer moved.
Yeah.
And then, Greg, he said, "Hey, Linda, do you want to become the organizer?" I was like, "Sure." I mean, no application or anything, just, yeah, of course, I'll do it. So I just moved into that place, and it was all because of my volunteering spirit. And I love volunteer. I've been doing volunteer work for like 30 years or even more, and I love doing it. It's so much fun. But like you said, because you never know what you're going to get out of it. That as long as you're, to me, if you're coming at it from a place of the heart, does it really matter what you're going to get out of it, because your heart is going to be filled?
I agree 100%. And like you said, you had put on small events before, but you had never put on a Forbes #1 rated event. So what better place to learn? And a lot of times, if we want to work for somebody, we don't necessarily have the connections to get the job or even the qualifications at that stage in our life to get the job. But if we offer to intern or volunteer or shadow them or just help out in whatever capacity we are capable of at that point in time, it inevitably leads to gaining knowledge, gaining experience, and making the connections we need to climb the ladder.
Yeah. And if you think about it, I remember, at the first of when I first started my entrepreneurial journey, I had heard about volunteering and all this stuff, which I had already been doing for years before that. But I was so focused on making money so that I could have a viable business that I forgot about the volunteering aspect, because I was, I was like, I need to make money. I need to make money. I can't volunteer. I can't afford it. I can't afford the time. But what I ended up gaining from that volunteering experience was worth like millions and millions of dollars, in my bottom line. I didn't know it at the time. I was just doing it because I wanted to help and I wanted to learn. But oh my gosh, the people I've met, it's just been astronomical. And these are people I never would have connected with if I hadn't done that volunteerism. And there was something you mentioned earlier, was about, the no. And I like to say, don't decide for them, because when we don't ask, we have already decided for them.
Mhm.
What if they would like to have you in their purview, but you're deciding that, you're not good enough, or you don't have enough experience, or you don't, whatever, right? It's like,
Mhm.
I know that sounds like a broken record, but really it's like you're deciding for them by not asking. And so I think it's really important that we just get off our ask and start getting out there.
Ooh, I love that. Get off your
Get off the ask.
ask. Yes. And it's amazing how generous people are when you give them the opportunity. You're a coach and a mentor to several female entrepreneurs, amazing females. And what people don't understand when they're on the asking side, that a lot of people feel privileged to be able to share their knowledge and help somebody get from 0 to 1 or from 1 to 2. Of course, not everybody has the ability or the time to take somebody from 0 to 10, so to speak, but everybody needed help. Everything in this world takes a village. It doesn't matter whether you're an entrepreneur, whether you're a creative, whether you're a parent, everything takes a village. And everybody needs help at one point in their life, regardless of if they're at the top of their game or if they're just starting out.
Yeah, and it feels good, right? When people ask you for advice or help, and then they actually use it. And that's the key to mentorship, good mentorship, is that the mentee actually does the work and then comes back and says, I did that. This is the result I got. What do I do next? And my
Exactly.
mentor, I mean, he has been an amazing mentor for me because I do every single thing he recommends, every single thing. I never fight with him about it. I just go do it. And then I come back and say, what's my next step? What's my next step? And, there's a saying that the most successful people are the most available people. And the reason is because a lot of people are too scared to ask them because they're too successful. So they don't have people knocking down their doors where you might think, oh, they're probably too busy for me, which again, you're deciding for them. So what you do is you just reach out to them and, like you said, they're not always going to be available, but the more people you knock on their door, the more likely they are to be available. I interviewed the founder of Priceline.com. He's a billionaire. And you might think that, oh gosh, he doesn't have enough time. I reached out to him and 10 minutes later, he sent me a message back and said, yeah, of course, I'll do this. And so I just ask. It does not hurt me to ask, at all.
Yes. And just, to go back to helping people, I subscribe to your newsletter and I'm connected with you on social media. And you get so excited when the people you're mentoring or your clients have used your advice and they have a win, because it's not just their win, it's your win as well. And it's just as exciting when you win as when the people you're helping win. And that's another thing that's so amazing about the generosity of spirit that you have. It's just beautiful. And that brings me to your company, Women Action Takers. So why don't you tell us a little bit about that and how you got started with that?
Yeah, that Women Action Takers, it has a lot of meaning for me because I spent a lot of time in my life where I was, hidden. I hid myself and I didn't speak out loud. I didn't share my voice with the world because I had a lot of fears. I faced a fear every day in 2015. Well, who would do that? A person who had a lot of fears, but I had a lot of fears because I grew up in a very volatile, abusive, alcoholic household, which caused fear, but it also caused me to become a people pleaser. So all of those attributes that I carried around with me, drug them around in my life for decades until I was 51. And when I hired a life coach, all of that baggage that I carried around stopped me from really living my life. So once I worked with my life coach and she really helped me to unlock that, who is Lynda? What's my purpose? And what am I all about? And all this stuff. It's it started that journey, right? And that journey, I met so many incredible people who helped me to make this discovery of who I am, what my value is. And part of that journey, I realized that I was not an action taker. I was more of a procrastinator than an action. I call it procrastinator and actionator, and I wanted to turn into an actionator. So I created a program called Women Action Takers. And first I started off with a mastermind because I had done masterminds for a couple of years prior to that. And I was like, I just want to be surrounded by action takers. So if I create this thing called Women Action Takers, it will attract action takers. And that's why I started. It was selfish reason because I wanted to be surrounded by them. And then what I was hoping would happen did happen. I have become a major action taker. Sometimes I take too much action. I got to slow myself down and say, it's time for you to just relax a little bit, not take so much action. But it's been incredible because it's that action that we take that is what gets us the results we want. So if I want a result, I got to think about what are the actions, and then I got to go take it and do it and not let fear get in my way anymore. So it's been an incredible journey of getting there, and it ain't over yet. I'm just starting. Just wait. You see, I got lots of great things planned for the future.
Amazing. So it's Women Action Takers started off as a mastermind and then it evolved. So where are you now with that business? What do you offer? What tools, courses, resources do you offer?
Oh my gosh. So I have moved into the publishing world, Women Action Takers Publishing, and started off by, I have my own book called The Year of Fears that I published a couple years ago. And then after that, I was like, what's my next thing I'm going to do? I'm going to do a collaboration book. So I brought together, 16 people who came together, wrote a book called Momentum, 13 Lessons from Action Takers Who Changed the World. And I love that process of bringing people together, putting their stories, into a book and making something of it, pushing it out there. It became a #1 best-selling book. And then I thought, you know what, I'm going to do that again. So I came up with 2 other book titles The Fearless Entrepreneurs and Invisible No More, Invincible Forevermore. And I ended up filling those two books up, and incredible stories. And I realized through this process that I was resisting doing this book thing, because I didn't know if it could be a viable business idea, which I don't know where I got that from, but that's where my head was. And so I kept on coming up with all these other business ideas. I'm going to do this and that and this and that. And then finally, it's just very recent where I decided to settle on the book publishing. And it's not just publishing. So it's about, bringing your story and sharing your story with the world in hopes that it will impact people in a positive way, to inspire them and motivate them to take action in their life, because women action takers. And then I'm excited about this because I've never done anything like this before, but coming up with a course called How to Write and Publish Your Book in 28 Days or Less. And I can show you exactly the steps that need to happen in order for you to do that. So there's other things that we have in the pipeline, but those are the two major things right now.
That is so fabulous. And I just want to go back because you mentioned you had met Jack Canfield at one of these secret knock conferences. And I feel like you're the female entrepreneur Chicken Soup for the Soul franchise. That's what you created for yourself, because Jack was one of the partners who created the Chicken Soup for the Soul series, which is one of the most successful book franchises out there. And, it's in that same vein of helping people who feel stuck, helping people, who might feel like they can't do what they want to do. And a lot of women, people in general, it's easier to talk ourselves out of things than to talk ourselves into things, once again, about saying no to ourselves and deciding for other people whether or not we're worthy, and not letting them make the decisions on their own. But I think especially women in society, as far as we've come, we're still a little hesitant in the entrepreneurial world. There are way less female entrepreneurs than male entrepreneurs. And you are like this beacon of hope to female entrepreneurs everywhere, that it doesn't matter what stage you are at your life. It doesn't matter how old you are. There are actions to take, and it just starts with that one step. So I'm so excited about your choice to go into publishing and this series that you've created, because as a female hesitant entrepreneur, you're such an inspiration.
It's interesting. Thank you for that. I appreciate that. And one day I was laying in bed and I was awakened at 3 o'clock in the morning. And this is usually when my best ideas come. And the idea was, women action takers who? Women action takers who what? And I was like, what? And I came up with these titles: Women Action Takers with Healing Powers, Women Action Takers Who Think and Grow Rich, Women Action Takers Who. So it's a series of books that, just like you mentioned, Chicken Soup for the Soul. I'm going to have a series. There's at least 40 titles already that I have that we're talking about making happen. And I'm so excited about that. But I want to share just really quickly how I met Jack Canfield. Do you want to hear that story?
I do. I love Jack Canfield. So please, yes.
And first of all, he's even better in person than he is, on the stage and stuff. He's just a really, really kind man. So I was going to be my first time doing red carpet work. I was going to be on the red carpet at the Academy Awards after party. Like, what? Yeah, there's another one of those, what? One of those things I never expected would happen. But I showed up at the event it was like 1:15, and they were on lunch break, because there had been like a daytime event that leads to the nighttime red carpet event. And they were all on lunch, but I walked in the room. There were about 500 people in there earlier that day, and it was almost empty except Jack Canfield and 3 other people. He was having a conversation with them. They were all looking at him, and so it was the 3 of them looking at him and him looking at them. And after about 10 minutes, I waited and waited and waited, because I'm going to get a picture with Jack Canfield. That was all I wanted, And the 3 of them turned around and walked away. And Jack just happened to turn around toward me and said out loud, "I'm hungry. I'm going to go get some lunch." And so I grabbed him by the arm And I said, Jack, I'm taking you to lunch. Where are we going? And he goes, okay. And we ended up going to lunch together. So I had a 2-hour lunch with him, which was absolutely incredible. And the first thing I said when I sat down, and the reason, okay, so on our way there, because it was about maybe an eighth of a mile, quarter of a mile away, on our way there, people kept stopping him. Jack, can you sign my book? Jack, can we get a picture? I have a product I want you to look at. I want you to endorse my book. And everybody wanted something from him. So I got a glimpse into what it's like to be a celebrity, first of all. And I got to tell you, it is not appealing at all from that perspective. But so we sat down for lunch. And the very first thing I said to him was, I just want you to know that I'm not here to take anything from you. I just want to be in your presence. I just wanted to be with someone like him so I could learn from him and really like, engulf, like, what is it like to be this person who's done so well with him for himself? So that was awesome. You could see that sigh of relief that he had. So later that night, we're on the red carpet, and here comes Jack walking down the red carpet, just like all the other celebrities. And he yelled out loud, hey, there's Lynda, my lunch buddy, like that. So it was really cool because I got that little notoriety that, Jack Canfield does know my name kind of thing, which was cool. It felt really good. It doesn't really mean anything really if you think about it in the real world, but it meant a lot to me. It meant a lot to me. And so we're on the red carpet, I'm interviewing him. And at the very end, I did something that was so Lynda-ish. I said, Jack, tell everybody what you love about me. And he gave me an amazing testimonial. I do love you. And here's why. And he said all these things of why he loves me so much. And it was so cool because I got a Jack Canfield testimonial because I said something random that I might not otherwise have said. I wouldn't have said if I thought about it ahead of time. So you just never know. Again, it was that ask. I asked, what do you love about me? And he said something, So it's just.
I love that story.
I'm having a blast.
I know. I love that story. That's a little outside of who you were at that time.
Way outside of who I was at that time.
Yes.
And I was stepping into it. That was part of the stepping in. And again, all I wanted was a picture with him. That was all I wanted. Just like everybody else, I wanted a piece of him. And I'm so glad it turned out the way it did, because having that glimpse into what everybody wanted out of him, it really had me appreciate celebrities and how, when they're out there, I said, when I'm a celebrity, at least now I know what it's going to be like, and he was so gracious with everybody. And somebody goes, is that your wife? And he goes, yeah. So he was just having fun with it. He was having a blast with it. It was fun.
Yeah. And it's so true because, there are a couple of people. I'm from Canada. I'm from a small town, and a couple of people had vacationed in LA and ran into a big celebrity who didn't want to engage with them. And, they kind of had an opinion about him. I don't want to say who it is because it's somebody who I admire and I really respect their work. And I just reframed it and I said to them, if that particular person was gracious and said hi and took a picture with every single person who came up to them and asked, they literally wouldn't have time to go to the bathroom ever. Yeah. And I said, if you think about it in that kind of perspective, these people have to protect their energy. It's a real thing, like energy vampires. And sometimes we do it without even realizing that we're doing it. And they say, relationships are either an equal energy exchange, a plus energy exchange, or a negative energy exchange. And when people are glomming onto celebrities, it's always a negative exchange for the celebrity.
So it's like being mindful, right? Just be mindful of other people and respectful. And I get it, they're celebrities and we might be awestruck, with them and what they're doing. And there's one thing I remember one day my mentor said to me, because I got a call from Les Brown. I'm not sure if you know who that is, but he called me up because again I was organizing this amazing event, Secret Knock, and he called me up and said, when I'm in town, you make sure that you come see me because I'm going to teach you how to leverage my name. Like I remember his exact words because it was so like, whoa, he called me to tell me this. And so it's interesting because when I got off the phone with him, my mentor, he was like, you were celebrity struck. Don't do that again. And I said, I was? No, I wasn't. Like I denied it, but then I realized that I was allowing those who I admire to control my myself, like me, how I act and how I
Yeah,
respond to them. And putting them on a pedestal doesn't serve them either. It really
no,
doesn't. They're
no,
human
it
beings.
doesn't. But on that note, I don't want us to run out of time. I want you to talk about your book, Year of Fears. So you were on this journey, you started volunteering at this event, you started meeting all types of very successful and interesting people. And is that what triggered this idea of Year of Fears? And was it a book idea first, or was it a life idea first?
Okay, so I'll give you the timeline. In August of 2014, I was 51 and I hired a life coach.
Mhm.
My life coach really worked me to, like, I grew a lot during the time working with her. And I worked with her until November of 2014. December of 2015, I was by myself. I didn't have her. And she helped me to, like, I was growing fast in that period of time. And so I got really addicted to the change. And then boom, I'm by myself. So
Hmm.
January 1st of 2015, I woke up that day and I said, I got to do something different because I miss all that change that I had been going through because it was positive growth change. And I
Mhm.
said, you know what? I have so many fears. I'm going to face a fear every single day this year. It wasn't a New Year's resolution because I break those all the time. I've never, ever finished a New Year's resolution. So this was a commitment. It was a new life commitment to myself to break through a fear every single day. So that started. And then in February of that year, so only about 6 weeks into it, I heard about this event called Secret Knock. I ended up signing up for it to attend. It was a 3-day event. Those 3 days were extremely pivotal in my growth because one of the persons I met was the founder of the Make-A-Wish Foundation. Now, this guy is larger than life, like truly incredible human, larger than life. And so I ended up talking to him, which was a fear of mine that day, was to talk to him and ask him to be the keynote speaker at an event that I was going to be putting on. So when I got to the venue that day, which was the middle of March, so now I'm 2.5 months into my facing a fear every single day, the whole drive up to the event, I practiced what I was going to say to him. So when I got to him, I said those exact same words. And all it was is simple, just like 10 words. I said, Frank, you're going to be the keynote speaker at my, and I named the event, you're going to be the keynote speaker at my event. That was what I said. I had no fear about it because I had practiced it, right?
Yes.
And so he looked at me and he said, he was talking to, 4 other guys at the time in what I like to call the circle of death because they're all like 6'6" and I'm 5'3". And I interrupted them and he looked at them and he said, excuse me, gentlemen, I'll be right back. I'm going to go talk to this young lady. So he and I walked outside. We had a really great conversation. We were out there for about 30 minutes, just talking about things and life. And I tell him about my event. And he said, yep, I'll be your keynote speaker at your event. And so really, again, it just took saying something and making that ask. That was extremely important for me because that was my first real experience of asking something of somebody I really looked up to.
Mhm.
I had him on that pedestal. Well, he and I became good friends. I ended up becoming an executive film producer for his movie called Wishman. And I interviewed him, I don't know, 5 or 6 times for my show. He's in my book Momentum. And so it just keeps going, right? Because I asked,
Yeah,
because I asked.
that's amazing. You are such an inspiration.
Thank
Oh
you.
my
You know, it's
goodness.
it, it's really that
You're
year of
helping
fear.
me realize I have to get off my ask.
Yes,
And
get off your ask. Well, but you asked the question about the progression, right? So the book. So I faced the fear every single day. That was when I gained my mentor. I gained a lot of connections. I attended Secret Knock twice that year. I was just meeting these incredible people that were really helping me. So at the end of the year, my mentor said to me, "Okay, you faced a fear every day. That's really cool, but what are you going to do about it?" And I
yeah,
said, "What do you mean? What am I going to do about it? I think breaking through a fear every day is plenty. Like, I don't need to do anything more." He goes, no, you have to write a book about it. There are people out there. Nobody faces a fear every day. There are people out there that will be inspired by your story. You gotta write a book about it. So I did. I was scared to write the book, but I did it. I was scared to put it out there, but I did it, and I did all the steps that I needed to do to make it happen. And it's really his inspiration that made me really sit down and say, he's right. I need to write this book. And then I was attending an event about maybe a year later, and this woman came running over from the other side of the room. We're in this big hall, and there's like 200 or 300 of us. She comes running over. Sunshine, I got your book. I read the first 9 pages, and I already broke through 5 fears. And I was like, she's who I wrote that book for.
Yes.
It wasn't about me at all. I thought it was about me at the beginning. It wasn't about me at all. It was about her.
Wow. That's amazing. Okay, I have like a kind of left field question. What was the most fun fear that you took on?
None of them were fun. Not a single one was fun because they were fears, right? But the funniest one, I'll share the one that I feel is the funniest one, and it was very specific. So every morning I woke up, asked myself the same question for 365 days. I wake up, my eyes open up, I'm laying in bed, and I say, what scares me? And then I laid in bed and I just waited until that first fear came up. Well, this particular day, the specific fear was talk to a stranger in Starbucks, because I used to go to Starbucks and work. Like I would take my computer and work at Starbucks. Very specific. So I went to the Starbucks and I was waiting, and it had to be a stranger because the words were talk to a stranger in a Starbucks, not a group of strangers. So I walked in and everybody was already paired up. There was no single person. So I waited agonizing, over this fact that I was going to talk to this stranger. And finally, this man walks in by himself. I'm like, oh, there's my victim, And then he orders his coffee and he sat down. And I walked over to him and I said, excuse me, sir, I'm facing a fear every day this year. And today's fear is to talk to a stranger in a Starbucks. Do you mind if I have a seat? And he was like, okay, sure, why not? So I sat down. We talked for about 5 minutes. And then I got up, I thanked him for his time, and I walked out of the Starbucks. I literally felt like throwing up. Like that was such a scary thing for me. I had such a tremendous fear over the fear of judgment, which most of the fears that I broke through, when I started looking at them and analyzing, like, what's the common thread between these fears? It was mostly that fear of judgment. What if he said no? What if he didn't like me? What if I said something stupid? All those things were going through my head. So I walked out of there almost, I felt like throwing up, but I didn't. And I felt so good with myself that I did it. That's my funniest one that I think. It's just, it's so specific.
Yeah, definitely. But it is scary to get outside of ourselves, and it's hilarious because for me, it doesn't seem like I would be afraid of talking to anybody, and I'm not, unless I'm at some networking event that could advance my career. Then I can't talk to anybody. Then I'm like, where you would think that's like where you're the most outgoing and you talk to the most amount of people. And it's like, for me, it's like, I'm so nauseous. I could barely get out of bed those days.
Yeah, because like there's a lot on the line potentially, right? In your mind, like in your brain, there's a lot on the line. So what I started doing, because my first networking event, I walked to the very back of the room, sat down, got on my phone, and didn't look at anybody because I was too scared.
Yes.
30-second commercial, forget it. Oh my God, I was just sweating the whole time. When they get to me, am I going to be able to say my name?
I know.
That's what worried me. Sometimes I would drive to networking events, sit in my car on my phone, not go in, and then just drive back home. Like I wouldn't even go inside. So I've had like so many different fears related to that. So what I started doing is I would say, okay, today I would always set an intention. I started setting it. So every networking event, what do I want to get from this networking event? And so I started saying things like, I just want to meet 2 incredible people.
Yes.
Now I'm on a mission. It's different. So now I go on a mission to find 2 incredible people. And that's my whole mission. I don't even talk about my business at all.
No. And when you break it down like that, it's not daunting and it's not as fearful as like, I need to meet this person who's going to invest in my business, or I need to meet, because a lot of times we have these like really lofty goals that we're not aligned with energetically, and they're so beyond where we're at that moment that we just set ourselves up to fail. but
Yeah.
breaking it down to something that is actually a manageable piece of the puzzle for where we're at that day is such a brilliant strategy. I love that you shared that.
Oh
And
yeah. Yeah. I
yeah,
came up with a lot of different strategies that worked for me because, when you're doing that kind of pressure against yourself every single day, you got to come up with strategies that work. Otherwise, you're just going to crawl up into a ball and die. I mean, inside, right? And so it's interesting because those fears, the majority of them were those fears of judgment. And I discovered that that is the number one fear. They say most people are scared of speaking on stage than they are of dying. The truth is that they're fearful of the judgment that's going to come from them speaking on stage. It's not the fear of speaking on stage, it's
yeah,
that judgment that's going to come from it. So when we can
exactly.
stop judging others, and because when we judge others is why we're fearful of judging ourselves. I
Mhm.
mean, of them judging us. When we can stop judging others, stop judging ourselves, we can move forward faster. And I'll share one last thing is one thing I discovered, there's this comfort zone, like we talk about this proverbial comfort zone that is out there. When you face a fear every single day, or when you start to step outside of that comfort zone, I like to call it enlarging the size of your comfort zone, because your comfort zone is however big it is today. And every time you step outside of it, you've actually enlarged the size of it. And so I would think like every day how much my comfort zone got bigger that day. Wow, my comfort zone enlarged today. And I just would think about it from that perspective of how much bigger and bigger and bigger it was getting on a daily basis.
That's incredible. And that's such a great perspective because it's true. We're not getting out of our comfort zone. We're expanding our comfort zone because we're in a
Yeah.
universe that's ever expanding. And if we're not expanding, then what's the fun of it?
One last thing I want to say, to your audience, speaking about this, because fear is debilitating and it'll stop you from moving forward in your life. So here's one last tip is you may be sitting there saying, you know what, I have this fear and I can't get over it. I can't get over it. And I understand that is your reality. That is your reality. And I respect that. Here's the thing is if you want to move beyond that fear, find somebody who is successfully doing what you want to do,
Mhm.
reach out to them and say, I want to be doing what you're doing. Would you mentor me? Or can you help me get there? I'm scared. I don't know the steps. Be vulnerable and just tell them, I don't know the steps to take. I'm really scared to do it, because they will be happy to guide you through it, especially if you step up and tell them the truth. And then now you're being guided by that person who is
Yeah,
going to help you to up level your own personal life because you did the ask. You got off your ask.
I love it. Well, thank you so much, Linda, for taking the time to chat with me today. This has been such an amazing conversation. I love everything you're doing. I love everything that you're about. And I know you're helping so many people out there. Thank you so much for taking the time today.
Thanks for having me, Jennifer. I really enjoyed it. And remember, get off your ask.
Yes, I know. I need to. And I'd like to thank all of you out there in the interweb for tuning in. I'd like to challenge you to do something you never thought you would so you can expand your comfort zone. Let us know what it is in the comments and where it leads you. And if you're enjoying the content, please like and subscribe. Have a beautiful day.